Mazuka Bwanji,
Oliotia.
Jambo.
Those are just a few of the greetings we attempted to learn, but today we will stick with good morning. For those who don't know who we are, I'm Laura Kelly, and this is my youngest sister, Emily. And this morning we are going to be sharing about our 4-month trip to Africa. We went in January, and we went to Malawi for 2 months, where we taught at a private Christian primary school. Emily taught grade 1, and I taught grade 2. Then in March, we went to Uganda and worked with Watoto at their baby orphanage. And then in April, we worked with Canadian Baptist Ministries in Kenya, where we taught at a Bible college. Yes, that's right, we were professors.
Not in divinity, in psychology. So we've titled our message this morning, Have Less, Do More, Be More. Although some other titles that we could have come up with are Tips to Self-Cleansing Hair.
No chicken? That's okay, I had a bowl full of bugs earlier.
Learning a new language in a day. Chichewa 101, Swahili 101, Lugandan 101. Before we left, we had a friend of ours who told us that this experience would likely be one of the most challenging, lonely, exciting, frustrating, and joyous times of our life, and she was right. So this morning we want to share with you both the highs and the lows because we think that it's important that we're honest here. So we have a few photos to start off.
This first one, you may look at this picture and see 2 children sitting on the ground. But what Emily and I see is the story behind this picture. The little girl on the left, her name is Tadala, and she wore that same dress every day for 2 months. It was ripped, it didn't do up in the back. She was often filthy, like her legs were all dusty. She never wore shoes. The only day she wore shoes was when we took them on a field trip, and it's just because she couldn't come unless she had her shoes. And so that's the reality of what we were dealing with.
This is little Emmanuel. When you look at him, you see a little boy with a big smile and big brown eyes. But what you don't know is this is the first time I had ever seen him smile. So I posted this photo, but I had always seen him just in the corner of the classroom during recess. Everyone else was playing and he'd be alone. So I made it my mission that morning to make him smile. So this is what you see. But what you didn't see is this photo a couple days earlier, and he's wearing the same shirt as you can see. And this was the first day that we started to give out food for the students who didn't bring any. So he never had a snack, so we gave him biscuits. And he didn't show any emotion, but he just ate them all up in a few seconds.
This next picture, you see this beautiful girl with a beaming smile. But what Emily and I see is, again, the story behind the picture. This little girl was in my class. Her name was Blessing. She was one of the brightest students. She was so eager to learn. She tried so hard, but she was one of the poorest children that we had. She never had a snack, and when we would give out a snack, she would eat it so quickly you wonder when the last time was that she had a meal. So that's the reality.
This is one of my best little friends, Hirida. I think that's her name. We couldn't really understand them, but I called her Hirida. And this is her smiling, and the next photo, she could light up a room with her smile. She was never not smiling. And even here, she was probably smiling. You can't see her face. But this is when we gave her and her sister bread and butter. And they had obviously never seen bread and butter before because they didn't know how to eat it. So we explained how they ate it, and they just kept eating until it was all gone. So again, you can see that they're wearing ripped dresses, and probably we don't know when the last time that they ate was. So a typical day in Malawi was like this. We wake up with the sun or the roosters that crow at 5 in the morning. We eat cornflakes. We don't shower because we don't have water. We don't check our phone because we don't have internet. We don't try to turn on a light because we don't have electricity. We put a skirt on, a knee-length skirt on in 40 degrees heat. We walk to school. We're greeted by hugs from our students. We start class with a prayer. We teach, try to teach. Fun fact, we were told that everyone spoke English. No one did, ever. Break time, pass out snacks to those kids who didn't have any. Sing, play, dance, try to teach some more, see some improvement. Goodbye hugs and goodbye high fives. We walk home, we're greeted by excited village kids. Sing, play, dance, repeat until it's dark. Goodbye hugs and goodbye high fives. Laura and I cook rice and beans. We journal about our day. We lesson plan for the next. We take a bucket shower if the well hasn't run dry. We kill some bugs.
Oh, and then if we have internet, we send mom a message saying everything's great.
And then we go to sleep earlier than my grandma.
The phrase have less, it definitely strikes a chord after living in Africa for 4 months. Each day we met people who were living with less, a lot less. Yet they were some of the most joyful, content, thankful people we've ever met. So for me, having less is simplifying my life in terms of material things, but it goes beyond that. It's about having less of myself and more of him. It's focusing on him rather than on my needs, my wants, my desires, you fill in the blank.
For me, having less is, again, not just about having less of the material, but having less selfishness and less negativity, because the people that we met in Malawi, they had less of this, but they were way more joyful than anyone that we've ever met.
If something burns your soul with purpose and desire, it's your duty to be reduced to ashes by it. Any other form of existence will be yet another dull book in the library of life. We love that quote, and that's the essence of do more. And our time with Canadian Baptist Ministries was a great example of this. Emily and I really enjoyed getting to know Erica and Aaron Kenny and learning what they're doing on the ground. It inspired us, it challenged us, it convicted us, and we often think of the conversations that we had with them, and we're just so thankful for that time. So for me, doing more is about being obedient to God's call in my life. It's about living into the experiences that God is giving me, whether that's right here in Moncton or in Kenya, like the Kennys.
For me, doing more is giving more of myself to more people at every opportunity that I can. So now we have this song with some photos from our trip.
God of the city, you're the king of these people, you're the Lord of this nation. You are, you're the light in this darkness, you're the hope to the hopeless, you're the peace to the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. For greater things have yet to come, and greater things still to be done in this city. Greater things have yet to come, and greater things still to be done in the city. Greater things have yet to come, greater things still to be done here. You're the Lord of creation. You're the creator of all things. You're the King above all kings. You are. You're the strength in the weakness. You're the love to the broken. You're the joy to the sadness. You are. There is no like our God. There is no one like our God. Greater things have yet to come, greater things still to be done in the city. Yet to come, greater things are still to be done in this city, oh, in this world. Greater things have yet to come, greater things still to be done in this city, in this world, Lord, oh, and greater things have yet to come, greater things still to be done here.
For me, be more means that as I live less for myself and more for others, I make a real difference in people's lives. You might not think that an encouraging word or a thoughtful gesture means much to someone, but I've come to realize that it always matters. And something neat about this trip is that while doing these small things for people in Africa touched their lives there, people hearing about it here, it's also touched their lives. So the other day, I was out in the neighborhood, and a neighbor stopped me to say hi and ask where I've been. And I just quickly told him I'd been in Africa and a little bit about the trip. And suddenly he asked if he could pray for me. So right there on the sidewalk with his lawnmower, he prayed over me a beautiful prayer. And this is something that's never happened to me before. And it would have never happened if his life wasn't touched by what he heard of Africa.
For me, be more is about my relationship with the Lord. How can I be more for him? And it's also about discovering the simplicity of God, which is a perfect segue to our scripture this morning. It's almost like I planned it that way. The Bible is full of dramatic stories, like God speaking to Moses through a burning bush, God using little David to kill a giant, and the list could go on and on. Our scripture passage this morning, however, shows the simplicity of God. In 2 Kings 5, we learn about a man named Naaman. He was a great leader and commander who had the world under his control. But unfortunately for him, he had leprosy. Wanting to get healed, Naaman visits the prophet Elisha, and that's where verse 9 picks up. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elijah sent a messenger to say to him, "Go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." But Naaman went away angry and said, "I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot, and cure me of my leprosy." So picture this, Commander Naaman, a proud man, proud of his accomplishments, his talents, power, position, wealth, isn't even invited in. Instead, he's told to go and wash in the Jordan River. Naturally, he he becomes angry. Why? Because he expected God's action to be more dramatic. Naaman seemed to want the magnificence of God's power to shine through this healing, and washing in the Jordan River 7 times seemed less than magnificent. How many times have you and I expected some dramatic, miraculous show, but instead God chooses a simple act? Continuing on in verse 13, it says, "But his officers tried to reason with him and said, 'Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, "Go and wash and be cured."' So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him. And his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed." I think there are many lessons in this scripture passage, and I just want to highlight 3 of them for you, because I think that's what pastors normally do. They have 3 points, right? So number 1, sometimes we expect God's power to be manifested in a great wind or an earthquake, but instead he chooses to speak to us in a still, small voice. I think it would be boring if we knew how he was always going to speak to us. So I like that he kind of keeps us on our toes, and when we expect him to answer in a certain way, he chooses a different way. The second lesson, even when we don't understand everything, we need to obey. Naaman didn't understand why dipping himself in the Jordan River 7 times would cure this awful disease, but eventually he chose to be obedient. And I think there's a big lesson in that for us. And the third lesson, God knows what he's doing. Let's be honest, he has a pretty good track record. And I'm always amazed at the way that he weaves things together so perfectly. We could be frustrated and think our life is in a mess and be mad at God because where is he? But he is behind the scenes putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So let me ask you, like Naaman, are you facing a crisis in your life today? Maybe it's a recent diagnosis. Maybe it's a crisis in your family or in your marriage. Maybe it's a conflict in your school or workplace. Whatever the case, will you give it to the Lord today?